Today's story is going to show that even if you hear something alarming outside, you should probably stay inside and keep your doors locked. Back in 2020, a young man that we're going to call Mike was living in a pretty rough neighborhood. Now, nothing ever happened to him personally that was a pretty bad incident, but there were gunshots and people's houses and cars being broke into throughout his neighborhood. Mike was a pretty anxious person, so he would always be pacing around or walking or just doing something constantly. And on one night, he was walking around studying, pacing by his front door. And at one point, he stopped and leaned up against his front door while he was still continuing to study. And while he was looking down at his book, he noticed that his doorknob started to turn. When Mike saw the doorknob turn, he immediately looked at the deadbolt to make sure that it was in fact locked. And it was, and he breathed a sigh of relief. However, he still would look through the peephole. When he looked through the peephole, he didn't see anyone out there. There's absolutely nothing. He thought to himself, is there a ghost trying to break my house? What is going on? Right after he thought this, he put a little more logic into what was going on and thought, you know what, whoever it was, maybe they went around back. And he quickly ran to his back door, made sure it was locked, and he looked out a few of the windows to make sure there's nobody out there. After he ensured the back door was locked and there was nobody in his backyard, he walked back towards the front door, and on his way there, he looked down at his dog that had a really concerned look in its eyes. After he got back to his front door, he looked through the peephole again to ensure that there was nobody actually out there. And while he was looking through, he heard 3 small knocks on his door, and he jumped back. He was like, what is going on? There is nobody out there. And then he went back to the door, looked through the peephole once more, and when he did that, he actually noticed a small girl, about 3 years old or so, standing just off his porch between the 2 bushes that led up to his front door. After he noticed the girl, he heard the small voice say, "Let me in." After discovering the girl, and then hearing her talk to him through the door, he decided to cover his mouth so that way he could try and make his breathing a little bit quieter. While he was looking through the peephole at this little girl still, he noticed that she seemed to turn towards one of the bushes and say, "Okay," which made him think that there was somebody on the other side of the bush that was telling her what to do. Right after Mike noticed this, the little girl would walk back up to the door again, try the handle, and then said, please help me." Now, Mike's uncle, who was a cop, had told him a story where there was 2 home intruders that were breaking into various houses that actually used the little girl to get people to open the doors. So he knew better than to open this door regardless of what she said. Now, Mike, completely unsure of what was about to happen. He didn't know if they were just going to force their way in. He didn't know what was going to happen. So he called the cops, he gave them their address, and they asked him to stay on the line, and he did. Right after the cops asked Mike to stay on the line until somebody arrived, he noticed a shadow came out from behind one of the bushes, grabbed the little girl, and just walked off. The cops did show up, but because of the lack of a description, nobody was ever found. The little girl was never located either. Now, Mike no longer lives in this neighborhood, and he has not had another experience like this happen since.